This is the Good Grief, Good God Show, bringing you raw, honest conversation about surviving things that suck, with new episodes on the first and third Tuesdays. Coming up in just 2 minutes is today's episode, but first, allow me to introduce today's guest and host, followed by a short preview of what's ahead. Your host, Brad Warren of the Warren Brothers, is a hit songwriter with 9 number ones to his name and songs recorded by some of the biggest names in music, from Tim McGraw and Faith Hill to Taylor Swift. Beyond the music, Brad's life includes 2 decades of sobriety and the heartbreaking loss of his oldest son, Sage, to fentanyl poisoning. And that's why Brad brings a unique perspective to every conversation, rooted in his vulnerability and unwavering faith, along with plenty of laughter along the way. For today's episode, Brad welcomes 6-time Grammy and 26-time Dove Award winner and member of the Gospel Music Hall of Fame, the first Christian artist to go platinum, Amy Grant. Here's a short preview, followed by a quick message from our team and this episode's sponsor.
Sometime in this last year, I was so unsettled by a lot of stuff. I was really battling my just faith, and I was like, Are you really here? Because I got nothing. I felt my hands kind of twitch, and I started to laugh. I said, "Are you dancing with me?" I don't know what that was. All I know is I walked out, I was in tears, and said, "Are you there?" That was as big as the prayer went. And I brought nothing to the table. And I walked back in and fell asleep. And I felt at peace.
To learn more about today's guest and the show, visit goodgriefgoodgodshow.com. Also, don't forget we release new episodes on the first and third Tuesdays. On the behalf of Brad's wife and Sage's mother, who also serves as our executive producer, Michelle Warren, along with segment producer Lisa Ball, thank you for joining us. The Good Grief, Good God Show is brought to you in loving memory of Sage Warren. And today's episode is sponsored by Songwriter City, where the songwriters take center stage. Their shows blend chart-topping songs with powerful stories behind each of them, creating an unforgettable experience. Book your favorite songwriter today, including the Warren Brothers, at songwritercity.com. Join us on our journey by becoming a sponsor. For more information, email info@goodgriefgoodgodshow.com.
I do. Or that's the man that spent the last 20 years making up for what a guy was before that.
Hey, we're all, you remember when our phones used to say, if you had put something in to get directions, if you made a wrong turn, it would say recalculating.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, we're just always recalculating.
Always recalculating.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but like a long time ago, we just ran into you and Vince somewhere. I think it was on a shuttle bus from the ACMs. We were all leaving early for separate reasons. You guys were probably actually leaving early to whatever. We ran into you. It's just the wives were with us. So me and Brett and our wives, and you and Vince were on this shuttle bus. And you said, "Every time I see you guys, I just feel sorry for your mom." And I was,
Was that when you were still drinking?
oh yeah. Oh, we were on the top floor. I'm sure even at that moment we were a mess. It's an interesting thing. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but like,
I don't remember saying that for what it's
yeah,
worth.
well, of course, you know, it was memorable. You didn't grow up with me in your house, but I grew up with you in mine. You know what I mean? And watching young artists that you love, or young creative writers, or whatever they might be, destroy their lives. You love them and you want to have grace, but you don't want to like celebrate their destruction. So every now and then you need someone to say something like that. Like, "I like you guys, but you're really making me nervous," you know? And I kind of like, yeah, I don't know exactly how to do that, but I'm getting closer, getting better. Mentoring. Matt, are we started?
Yes.
We're always started, aren't we? You keep that running.
Of course.
I hope
I wasn't totally at home until I spilled coffee on myself.
Do I ever spill anything on myself, Michelle? I'm bad. Thank you for doing this. Your name was mentioned so many times on here by your friends that are the people I think the most of in the world. And my good friend, who's your nephew, Burton, was like, "You got to have Amy on your podcast." I'm like, I would love to, but I hate asking. And he's like, just do it. So it's Burton's fault that you're here. but you're the givingest. You and Sheryl Crow are the least full of shit famous people that I know. I don't know that doesn't, I don't want the other people that I love to think they're full of, I'm not saying that they are, but there's just something about your path. First of all, I want you a little bit start from the beginning, because we're roughly the same age, but you're a little bit older than me. In a way that you were part of my childhood, as far as like my sisters, what they listened to. And I kind of from a distance watched your journey and the amount of crap you've taken, and blessings that you've been given all at the same time, and the grace that you kind of navigate your way through them. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. You never gave the middle finger. Or maybe you did in private, but you never did it. You just don't have the middle finger personality.
I've given the middle finger before, but not, I don't, everybody's life is so interesting. Everybody's. And I fell into music. I was not a kid that sang into a hairbrush looking at myself in the mirror.
You didn't. How did you fall into it?
I've always loved music. And when my two oldest sisters came back from Boston, they went to school there. There was just like this Jesus hippie movement up there. I'm sure it was a combination of being stoned and praising God. Right. But they came back and started going to an old Church of Christ that had become spirit-filled and was everybody was blue jeans, barefoot, flowers in the hair, sitting in the window sills. And when I was lucky, I got to go with them. And that church also had a bookstore and a record store, and they just had live music on Saturday nights. So this was mid-70s. And so I loved that music, and all of that just felt, we would just sit cross-legged on the floor, and like the carpet on the floor, they were all carpet samples that were just like put together on a patchwork quilt, nothing fancy. Yeah. And that bookstore went through a couple of different configurations of getting bigger, but it was on Old 16th, 16th.
Oh, here?
Yeah, in Nashville, yeah. So I'm a sophomore at Harpeth Hall Girls' School. And every week we had a mandatory chapel. It wasn't a Christian school. It's just part of, chapel program. And we were sitting in our assigned seat. And I just remember a minister was talking, and all I remember is how different it was from what felt like this vibrant experience that I was just beginning at the hippie church. And I kind of walked out and went and looked up and just said, man, you can use some PR down here.
I say that still.
Yeah. So I went to the head of school. At the time, her name was Ida Nell McMurray. And I said, may I sign up to do a chapel program? And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm not sure yet, but it's going to be music. I had just started playing guitar. I had just written my first few songs, and I started writing for that chapel program. And I'd sing like a Joni Mitchell song, and then something I'd written. I sang Carole King, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? And then I'd sing one of my songs. It's 30 minutes.
Is Harpeth Hills a religious school?
Harpeth Hall.
It's
a girls' school.
I know the school because my kids had friends, but it's not a religious. So they let you do a Joni, because at our church they would have never let a Joni Mitchell song show up in a chapel service.
Girls' school that had a weekly chapel program. I don't know if they even still have weekly chapel, but I graduated and I was class of 78. So, but yeah, and so I loved it. I loved singing all kinds of music. And after that chapel program, I just found a couple of notes stuck in my locker and my backpack. Hey, can we talk? And I would say, oh, yeah, let's talk. And people just wanted to talk about their own faith journey. And, and I would just say, everybody's life is unique. I can tell you about my experience. And then I started getting invited to do other things. Hey, will you play guitar and sing while we're while we were doing a double date. We're cooking these guys dinner. I mean, it was not even like some things were really, I was so under the radar. And I never played out.
Wow.
But people would say, would you come? We're having a prayer breakfast. Will you come sing a few songs? But I was just in high school. And so a friend of mine who was one of the leaders of our youth group was taking some classes at Belmont College in studio something, because he had a job at a studio, but he was faking half of what he was doing. He said, I need to learn really what the control board does. So kind of show up and not be faking it at work. And he said, I've got some free time. Why don't you come record your songs? And I did. And he went back to his studio and he was running off a tape copy. And the owner of the house that had the basement studio, feel free to edit all this out, but this is how weird it is.
This is fascinating.
So Chris was the owner of the house. And Chris came down and his old college roommate, Brown, was down there. And he said,
Is that Brown Bannister?
And he said,
That's so funny.
Oh my gosh, he said, I've gotten a call from Word Records. They're located in Waco, Texas. They want to launch a contemporary label and they want to launch it with 12 artists. They can't even find 12 artists. And then Chris goes, who's that? And he said, that's Amy Grant. And Chris had been on a couple of dates with one of my older sisters. And Chris said, let me call the record company. And he played that cassette over the phone. And the guy said, she doesn't sound great, but she sounds sincere.
By the way, huge compliment in hindsight. But
No
yeah,
kidding.
at the time, it probably wasn't.
So Brown calls me that night. He said, offer a contract. Brown calls that night after 10 o'clock, because this is kind of going on a while for them. And I'm 15. And he said, hey, Word Records is offering you a contract to make a record. And I think he's making fun of me, because that's what 15-year-olds are, self-protecting and insecure. And he said, I mean it. Like, they're sending somebody to town. It would be like if somebody had said, you are going to be on the next space shuttle.
Oh, I was trying to do that since I was 12. I know what it must have been like.
It made no sense. And then my dad picked up the phone and said, young lady, it's after phone curfew. And I was grounded. So in the same phone call.
Couldn't get a record deal because I was grounded. Yeah.
No, in the same phone call, I was offered a record deal and grounded.
What did your parents think about did they think it was fake? Like, I just got offered a record deal.
No, I mean, it was a one record deal with an option that we both had to agree to. And it came out, I worked on it slowly. Nobody was holding their breath. Writing, and then it came out right around spring break of my senior year.
So all songs that you had written?
So, written or co-written. And I guess I'd have to look at it. I don't.
But yeah, so I mean, this came from the collection of things that you were working on. They didn't just say, here's a group of songs, go record these. And Brown Bannister produced that? No?
Yes. And
he's friends with my brother. I don't know him, but
Yeah,
I'm very aware of his
he's
careers.
great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that just continues. So that was that came out in the spring of 78. And then I just, all through college, I kept making music and singing, and it just.
I wonder did you play any of the Jesus festivals? Jesus 78, Jesus 79?
I did, in Kissimmee, Florida.
Yes. Okay. I went to those. Like,
You might have been there.
I was like 10 years old.
I was an afternoon act.
Yeah. Whatever it was, like I'm sure you're familiar with Larry Norman.
Okay.
But Larry Norman's, like, that was the coolest thing. Because like Christian music was what it was. My sisters loved you and it was fine. And then I see this guy with like waist length blonde hair and he's singing these raunchy, gritty Christian songs. So after years of whatever, my brother and I become the songwriting team and going through our history, a couple of years ago, he goes, dude, I just downloaded. He said, just put Larry Norman on Spotify. And we sat in his truck and listened. And we're like, our writing is so much like his. That was
You were influenced by him.
Absolutely influenced our phrasing, the way we word things, the little notes of sarcasm, even though it was Christian music. He had words that you just wouldn't put in Christian songs.
Yeah, yeah.
And we try to do that with country songs. But I mean, not all of it, because you become a capitalist at some point and just start, being a mercenary as a writer. But our general vein of natural writing is absolutely influenced by Larry Norman more than anyone in the world. And it was from Jesus 79 or something. I'm just a little kid. And this guy comes out on stage. You were probably there.
I was at Jesus 79.
That's wild. And there was some great music. There was
you
what you were
doing. Did you camp or were they day trips?
I think we camped. I was little. So, I mean, the fact that my parents even allowed this, but there was a moment where if you titled Jesus on it, it was good. And then when like Res Band came out, that was a little too much. And we started getting even restricted. I'm like, oh my God, even Christian music isn't good enough for you. You know, we had that secular Christian music fight. Like from very young, I wanted long hair from 8 years old on. I wanted to play guitar. 11 years old, I started playing guitar. And that's all I wanted to do. And my mom and I still argue. I'm like, Mom, I'm in my 50s now. I won. I have tattoos and long hair. You can't do anything about it. You have to leave it be. But there was some great music, and there was a strange hippie movement. The T-shirts that said "Keep on Trusting" instead of "Keep on Trucking."
Yeah, it
was all the.
So all that movement, that was what was happening on that church on Music Row, and it did feel like. I mean, it was everything all at once, which life is. It was everything all at once, and people will. 3 girls in our high school youth group was so active, and we spent so much time together. And 3 girls got pregnant. Of course, you want to go if we're all getting that close to each other and praying and closing our eyes, and everything is happening.
Yeah,
and that's just life.
Yeah,
and yeah,
some horrible things happened in our youth group. Way worse than that, and it's just people.
That's life.
It doesn't God's fault.
Yeah, people are messy.
Yeah.
And honestly, my whole life, I have felt like I am a hard worker and I do love music. But what I have felt like is a milkweed in the wind, and that I just will go, okay, here we go. Okay. And then I'll land somewhere else, and then I'll land somewhere else. And, because I feel I'm so in the moment. I don't have a lot of energy to be proactive about where I want to go.
Because I don't know you as well as I could, but I do know you from the people that you know. And you are a person who says yes when other people say no. And you stay in that moment. And Vince doesn't text people. That's amazing. Like what a peaceful existence you guys must have. Just the absence of I don't text people. It's crazy, but both of you say yes when others say no. And that leads to things. You're approachable. So eventually somebody says, hey, do you want to be in the Eagles? Or, there are questions like that.
Yeah.
But I attribute, when you look back, because nobody's a great enough singer to be the big star they are, because there's some guy singing on Broadway that's amazing. And no one's songs are just that great because you could find them songs. There has to be something in someone's personality that leads them to their success. Sometimes it's tenacity but I really look at you as someone who just says yes. Not foolishly, but or without thought, but you're just someone who says yes and lets it lead. And what a cool career, rather than it doesn't appear like you're a musical slave to anyone's, how we get into the country radio thing in our business. And if country radio wasn't playing it, now we're subject to streaming and whatever it might be. But doesn't it do you feel like that's part of your success and that it's freeing?
In my younger years, in the really intense years, I was surrounded by people that I trusted that did have big dreams. That the first time, for instance, my 2 managers, one was married to my sister, Dan Harrell. And he, just when I was young, he said, look, there's so many shysters out there. Just let me, he worked for First Tennessee Bank. And he said, just let me take the calls coming in. And then I was still in college, and he said, it was a legal pad in my bottom drawer. And now you filled all the drawers. Would you risk I leave the bank and manage you full time? And then he took on a partner, Mike Blanton, who was an old family friend. And Mike was so musical and Dan was so business. They were a great combination. But I remember in the fall of 1981, Mike said, we're going to do a different recording experience this time. We're going to take all the musicians and their families. I have rented, it took the entire budget. I've rented Caribou Ranch for 2 weeks. And the first week, all the musicians and their families are going, and you're going to cut however many tracks. And the second week, all of our families came out. So Burton was at Caribou the 4 times I went as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my grandmother's. And so it was always like, while we're doing this, we're also living life. And so let's include everybody. But I would have never had the idea for Caribou. I saw the special with Chicago, and they're all running around.
But you said yes.
And it was unbelievable. We made 4 records there. And when we were there, Jimmy Guercio, that owned Caribou Ranch and started CMT, he said, he heard the tracks and he said, this will be the first million-selling contemporary Christian record. We're looking at him like, we've never even sold a fourth of that, and it was.
And it was.
And so I don't know why. I mean, I listen to all that now, and it stylistically is not what I would choose sometimes now. A lot of it kind of, you listen to older stuff, and
I'm being sold now that I listen to the old stuff. I didn't used to think it was good enough, and now I think it's better because it was just so honest. I wasn't capable of doing anything else. They didn't just stick you in the machine then. Like your management was even a new thing. You weren't really like, we're going to stick you in this
nobody,
music
none
machine.
of us knew what we were doing.
Christian music wasn't even really a way to make a living right about then, right? I mean, it was a tough sell to do that full time. Bands would go out on the weekends or something. It appeared that way.
Yeah. And I went to 4 years of college. So I was like.
And you stayed in college through.
I didn't graduate, but I went 4 full years because I worked every summer and most weekends. And
that makes me feel better about my 3 years in junior college.
That's a lot of way back history.
That's amazing. So it's so funny the names that still come up, and that Brown Bannister was involved in that because my brother teaches at Belmont, the songwriting class, and he deals with Brown Bannister. And so you're the first Christian platinum seller ever. And is that when you did Baby Baby, or we got a lot of space between there?
Baby Baby was not 9 years after that.
9 years. So you did a lot of time as the queen of Christian music.
You know what? I did music full time starting the summer of '82, meaning it's a regular touring and recording and writing, and other things happened. Like in 1986, I was visiting my college roommate in Atlanta. And so just finding people on the phone was interesting. And I got a call from Michael Omartian, and we'd met before. And I was like, hey, I want you to come sing this song. And you're going to love it. You're going to be great. I'd never worked with Michael, but he had intimated he wanted to work with me. And anyway, he said, this is the lead singer from Chicago. He's doing a solo record. And it was Peter Cetera. Of course, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I grew up with all those Chicago records.
Yeah.
And I flew to LA, and Peter was there. It was so much fun being in the studio working, and we did a song called Next Time I Fall. Well, then I don't think about it.
That's totally part of my childhood.
And then I'm working. I get back from a tour down under, and I went, man, God, I thought that song had so much possibility, and I never heard it on the radio one time. And whoever I was with in the car said, I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And within a week, it went number 1. I just never was, I don't know why. It was like I operated with a level of oblivion.
That's awesome.
And I felt that way about criticism too. I never felt it.
On both ends, a far healthier way to do this, because notoriety, fame is very easy to be unhealthy in the middle of that. And being a little bit oblivious is so necessary. I get crap from everyone on it. I just cannot bring myself to engage in social media. And I get it. I get where it's valuable and necessary for some people, but man, constantly dealing. First of all, to be a healthy person, you gotta be able to ignore the compliments and the cuts. I mean, forget successful person, but a healthy person. If you absorb everything everyone says about you, you're going to be the piece of shit the world revolves around.
Right.
And it just doesn't work very well.
Yeah. I remember one time, I was still in college, and I was on a work trip with my brother-in-law. And I don't even remember what was said, but something critical was said about me. And I said it to him. I said, why would somebody say that? And without hesitation, he said, I think the better question to ask yourself is, what thing did they say? What might have been true? And he said, because in every lie, there's always a speck of truth. And it really made me go, oh, okay. I just thought that was great advice, and it would take a big brother to say that.
So do you mean that you give a little credence to the criticism, even if it's unwarranted, because there's a little truth in it?
I don't pursue criticism. And so it's not a full-time job, but for him to say, if somebody, rather than go beat your chest and say, I am not that,
Yeah.
rather kind of go, oh, I'm a lot of things. Maybe I'm some of that too. Who knows? But to me, it's a different approach.
It's better. I mean, I have to say it out loud. The Christian music audience, not so much at this moment in time, maybe because I'm not as familiar, but when I was growing up, very unforgiving, vile, just hurtful. So when you did a secular, I remember the Peter Cetera song. Was that the first crossover thing you did? It was a huge song.
Maybe there was a little radio thing before that because of A&E.
Huge bit of pop culture. And it was this thing that was like, oh, this is so bad. And I always kind of wondered, like, why? What's bad about this? And man, it was just like this, it was like when we heard a person from a Christian band cuss. And I was the kind of kid that was like, oh my God, that person cussed. And I'm like, do you really think they didn't? Because we were raised in a house with no cussing and no alcohol. None. And then the first time I heard my dad cuss without my mom, I wasn't offended. I was like, oh, Dad's a real person. Like it was okay with me, but we had this strange set of standards. We're in a culty little church, very evangelical, speaking in tongues, slain in the spirit, and tons of malfunction, dysfunction. And so we did the whole burning in records and whatever that was, playing records backwards. And I'm like, why would anyone play a record backwards? And I'm listening. I don't hear someone saying Natos or whatever, it was. So I just wonder, we tried to get Christian record deals. Brett and I were in that, but it never happened. Oh, thank God. It would have been really bad. But watching you go through it, you just never, there's the middle finger you didn't give. You just kind of went to the next thing. And you've always been now that I know you, and I know so many people that do, always just live like a Christian, but didn't really have to, beat your chest. Maybe it's from that little piece of advice you got from your brother. Maybe.
I don't know. Also, I came up in a much different time. There were not cell phones. I mean, it doesn't matter what conversation is happening around someone's dinner table or at a church.
You didn't have to hear it.
Well, I wasn't there. I wasn't at that dinner table. I mean, I wasn't at that church. Somebody could have a big opinion, and it's physically impossible to intersect with that opinion. Now, times have changed.
Yeah.
And I can't even... it's just different, and everybody's kind of wired for the time into which they were born, is the way I look at it. And so, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, I'm just not going to turn a camera on myself and say something and post it because it does not compute. I look with awe at the relationships, truly, of younger artists and all the people that there's so much interaction. And I just don't speak that language.
Thank God, right?
Well, yeah, but just like kind of every season has its green light zones.
Yeah.
And so
it's an interesting perplexity. I write everyone a quote, and I forgot to read yours when we started.
Who's this? Who says it?
It's from Rabindranath Tagore. I don't know who that is, but I'm a quote fan, so I look him up and I write him. But the quote I had for you was, faith is the bird that feels the light when the dawn is still dark. And I really...
Faith is the bird.
Faith is the bird
that feels the light
when the dawn is still dark. But my perception before we started talking was that there was really heavy on you, all this, the criticism from your beautiful Christian fans or whatever, but it doesn't seem like it really affected you that much.
No, not at all.
That's really amazing.
Well, I got a big family. And everything kind of filtered through that.
And by that, you mean a good support group and people that just kept you level?
I had a friend who was with me in a hotel room the first time I sold out the Forum. It was the mid-'80s, maybe 86. And I had called home. I was talking to my mom and dad. And Burton's older brother, Logan, was a starter on his basketball team, high school. And my friend still will say, yeah, I remember the phone call home. And I said, oh my gosh, everybody was singing along. And I can't believe how many people were there. I remember the first time I played in LA and it was Hollywood High School and it wasn't even full. And how many points did he tell me again? How many points? I mean, it went that fast from fantastic. Did you know so-and-so beat so-and-so and your nephew scored that many points? My family did not revolve around the work.
Yeah.
And so it had a space, but everybody was just celebrating everybody's life. But she said, and she said, this feels freakish to me because some families wait for something to happen in an artistic community that elevates the whole family.
Yeah.
And she said, you could walk into your family and be there for 3 days and nobody would know you have a career because everybody's talking about everybody else. And I said, well, I kind of like that. And that's what's familiar to me. I felt very loved by my family and just kind of somewhere in the pack.
I can attest to that myself. We happened to get to go to your house for Thanksgiving and watching you. I wouldn't even have known it was your house. First of all, everyone was so at home making their thing. That's a huge blessing. There's a quote that's attributed to you, and I don't know if it is, but somebody told me that you said, if you think that your life and story are more interesting than that person watching your dressing room door, you need a readjustment. Now, I don't know if you said that, but it sounds like something you would say. And if you can keep that attitude, this whole thing can be fun, this thing that we're doing. But man, we're all in such a climb to get to the next thing. You said you live almost like alluded to the fact that you live in the moment too much. You can't. I mean, I guess if you just spend all your money on the blackjack table you're at, you can live in the moment too much. But as a social thing and a spiritual thing, I think that's a huge blessing. I think that's why you always come in and appear to be at peace. I mean, I don't know how much of that is genetic or you learn as your family, but obviously this comes from a really great root. Your family's awesome. Yeah, you have a great, the whole vibe of everyone around you. Just like no one's family is perfect, and we all tend to try to make it look that way. I'm like, nobody's falling for that. Just be.
I always just think, well, relationships are like a rock tumbler. And I was obsessed with rock tumblers when I was little. And 2 of my daughters were engaged the same year. And I gave them a rock tumbler with rocks and sand for Christmas one year. I was like, you ready? You're about to enter the tumbler. And, and now Vince and I are grandparents. And I don't know, like if a kid came up to me and said, well, even our youngest daughter will say, I want to love like this.
About you guys.
Yeah. And I go, well, nothing looks like this at the beginning.
Right.
Everything jagged and all that. But, I feel like, I feel like everybody is looking for a place, longing for a place to risk being not even who they are, but just risk being however they show up. And maybe it was just the family I was born into, or how I was pre-wired, but it matters to me to create an environment where people can show up, even if they're however they are. And so, yeah, and I don't even, none of us has an aerial view of ourselves.
No,
we don't know
people
how.
compliment you all the time, and I don't want it to be like that. I'm thinking me think of something great to say about Amy, but the truth is just the truth. And like our friend John Huey, when his son passed away, and we share a lot of things. We're in a group together, but when he told me, because you don't ever know until you get into the spot what you would or wouldn't want. I'm way different as a human being after having lost a child, because I've now now I understand how you show up for someone, but I didn't really know how to do that before. You send a nice message, you send a meal, and when he said you just showed up at his house and you guys just sat on the porch, I'm like, oh my God, she thought of the perfect thing to say. Nothing. And it's really hard to do that if you're not confident in something in yourself, to just show up and not say anything. My words are always like a way of deflecting what I might be feeling. So I'm going to throw some humor in, and we're going to say a lot of things. And the truth is, I'm learning slowly, just put your feet there. Just be right here and sit and don't say anything. And I just think it always tears me up when I think about you and John Huey sitting on his porch, not saying anything. And I'm like, wow, that is so, and I don't know why it's so rare. I think I had moments of that with friends, but the truth is we all kind of tried to suss out the situation and assurances that my child was in heaven, which I love and appreciate those assurances, and I needed them. But also there's a time to just sit, and like, I don't know, I can't fix this, and to be able to do that is, I don't know, there's something in, I think in your art that probably comes out. That thing comes out of you, whether you meant it to or not. So thank God you had the ambitious people behind you that could set the machine in motion, and you could maintain your serenity, it seems like.
It's funny, like, I'm not going to say them, but I want so bad to go, these were some dark times in my life. This is when I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing. That was a long tunnel I had to come out of. I'm not going to say any of those things, but it's interesting too to have grown up in a less, where the real coloring outside the lines happened before everybody was so viewed. I'm so grateful for every bad decision I've ever made, and I'm so glad that
there was no social media.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a lot of pressure. It makes me like, I look at our youngest daughter wants to have a career in music, and I'm like, I know you have the capacity to find whatever your journey is, but just don't look for an end goal. Just let it take you where it will take you, because an end goal, you're just going to either make it or not make it. But if you just say yes, say yes when you get a chance, whatever it is, and just let it take you where.
And also, what does make it too? That's a moving target. What does make it? Especially when your parents are Vince Gill and Amy Grant. That's a tough road. But if you're just doing your thing in the moment and allowing it to happen, I know, as you do, people on all levels on this business, and the level of happiness is not always related to what we call success. And happy, I don't even know if happiness, goodness. Like I always, I just want my kids to be happy. I'm like, I'm not sure what that is. I want them to be good. And if they're good, then they'll be happy because they'll serve people. And that's when that's the only time you're really happy anyway.
Yeah. I started a couple of years ago saying, if anything that you can figure out that feels like, yes, whatever, anything, just write it down, like have a running list, because everybody's is going to be unique. And so it can be like, every time I light candles, it feels good. Or if I put on music, or if I cook, I love chopping vegetables. I love whatever it is. These are easy things, but like when I was trying to get back my stamina after a surgery years ago, I started swimming, because running, I felt like I was breaking all the small bones in my feet. And I forget that.
Yeah.
But swimming felt good, even though it was hard, even though it felt like controlled drowning. And I eventually had to write that down, because I went, this is a yes for me. It's hard, but it's good. I was such a slob when I was a kid, but actually organizing a contained space feels good to me. Simplifying processes feels good to me. Anything that go, okay, yeah. And I say that to all my adult children, keep a running list, because hopefully you'll find a vocation that is found within that running list. And so let your curiosity lead you, because nobody is going to have the same list. And so it's a kind of a way of wrapping your arms around your own life. You can't there's just no way to say, hey, do we all love this?
Yeah.
What's everybody going to do? And so, yeah.
And you know, what's so funny? We do that in music. Isn't everyone going to love this? Instead of just making something that might be great because we love it. We're all looking around. Is this good? And I mean, I'm as guilty as the next person, because like I said, we mercenary. But that's a great way to. So we were talking earlier about the grounding and all that. Like how far into the mental, physical. I don't even know what to call it. Functional health, cellular, whatever. But how far into all that are you? Because I'm a freak about all of it now.
Well, I find it all fascinating.
Yeah.
If I have a little time, I'm one of those people that I have toured for over 40 years, and I could count on two hands the times I have just turned the TV on in my hotel room.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Maybe 2 hands and 2 feet. But, maybe once a year I'll rent a movie, maybe, but I would rather have the silence. I'd rather get out and ride my bike or go swimming or take a walk, but I'm not a TV junkie. I think it was not having a television in college. It just kind of broke the pattern for me. But
that's so good.
Why did I say all that? I can't remember.
Well, we're grounding. We're doing all of this.
But if I have a little bit of time now in a hotel room, I'll look up a documentary.
Oh, a documentary freak. That's
Always
my
more
favorite.
Interesting than a movie. Although there's so much great television, so it just kind of, once again, your list.
When I fly, I get a documentary to watch to get me through a flight. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I like to learn and be entertained at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So my sister sent me a documentary on grounding back in 2020, and I loved it. I'm not a fast food eater, but I'm not militant about anything. But if I have my preferences, Vince and I don't eat out very much.
We don't eat out either.
Yeah.
It's impossible to eat healthy out.
Yeah. And so I love to cook because it's calming, and I just love chopping. I love chopping vegetables. It makes me so happy. It's weird. Yeah.
It's the simple things, isn't it?
Yeah, I love the color. I love the texture. I love all that. And I think all that shifted for me years ago. I started getting those Blue Apron meals, and I loved all the cooking, and then simplified to HelloFresh, and then sent that to my adult children just so I knew that they could have some food. It was a Christmas one year. And without exception, they all said, oh my gosh, it went from ordering something, fast food or otherwise, restaurant, was it hot, was it cold, would I order it again, to suddenly the relationship with the food started in the produce aisle.
Yes.
Hey, that looks good. I've never tried to cook that. And curiosity took over. And anytime curiosity takes over, home free.
Yeah. Yeah. Shop on the edges of the grocery store too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Start in the produce aisle and stay on the edges. Don't stay out of the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So can I tell you about when I leave here? I've got my swim bag. I hope to go swim at the Y. And then I have some things to take out to our farm. And I just wanted to segue to tell you about a passion of mine. So 2017, the fall of 2016, a friend of mine was life coaching, and she had several different clients from different places. And she said, hey, I want these women, they all want to experience change in their life, but I tell them they have to risk doing something differently, no matter how insignificant it is. She said, but I have about 10 women. They're all flying to Nashville, and I want a place for a retreat. And I'm thinking about doing several things like a trust walk, which I guess is following a thread and you're blinded. And anyway, she said, I'm working on the programming and I want to ask you, could we have the retreat at your farm? And I said, yeah, it's November.
The yes person. Yeah, of course. The yes person.
Yeah. And I said, okay. Why don't we could clean out on that hillside. We could clean out, we've got a couple of log cabins and then a one-room structure. Let's just clean them out. They're not fancy. It's not a controlled air situation, but there's electricity. And it took a couple of days to really deep clean. At the time, I had a pop-up camper and I had firewood for her. So I guess she had that experience. On Monday, on Sunday, I'm coming home from a rehearsal at SIR. I called her and she said, oh my gosh, some of the women had to fly home, but some of us are still by the fire. By the way, I needed none of the programming. We just needed the fire. And I said, okay, we'll spend the night. Have at it. And then I called again on Monday and she said, we are definitely leaving tonight. And I'm driving home and I said, will you say again what happened there? And she said, I had programming. We didn't need it. We just needed the fire. And I said, how long did you need that fire? And she said, 48 hours. And Brad, as I'm sitting here, I felt like I could see like a shiny something waving at me from my peripheral vision. And I said, will you just be on the phone with me while I grab this thing in the imaginal world and pull it in? I just need somebody to say it out loud to. And I said, we need to start a fire. We could do it December 31st or January 1st. And ask, how long did you need? She said 48 hours. We can invite them, ask them to help us keep this same fire burning for 48 hours. And what we know we're doing is giving them a chance to see life from a different perspective, see what fires they need burning. But we'll pose it as though we're trying to see if we can keep a fire burning until May 1st. And so we did that January 1st. And so I had a hard time getting people to start. I'd pack another bag and Vince was like, are you heading to that fire again? And I said, this matters. I can't explain it. So this year, people are keeping the fire again. I'm taking some supplies out there.
I feel guilty because you invited us, but we didn't do it last year. I need to get
doesn't
back
matter.
in.
It doesn't matter. There's always somebody. So
No, I want to do it.
So Bill Frist, a couple of years ago, said, hey, they bought Jimmy Buffett's old place, owned by Kim Carnes before that. And he said, bring any relics you found from your farm. Those, they call them marbles, Indian marbles, but they were made by putting marbles in fire, any arrowheads, because those burial mounds that are on Old Natchez Trace near Bill Frist's place, they had somebody coming from the Smithsonian. And that location, I didn't know that till the person from the Smithsonian told us, but the Smithsonian was going to return those burial artifacts to those burial grounds. Wow. And they said that the Mississippian Indians that went from the Great Lakes to the Gulf, at the time that London was population 8,000, that group of Mississippian Indians was about 2,000. And so they started telling us about the culture from the pot shards, different things they found. And they said, actually, this culture was matriarchal, and the woman, and every time she always has a quilt around her that's in relief. Well, I collect quilts. And so they start like poking me. The two people I went with, our farm manager and a friend visiting from out of town. And the person keeps speaking, and they said, actually, this community was built around a seasonal fire. And I couldn't think of anything after that. And they said that would be lit for a season. And then I don't know how they knew that. All I could think of was my attention was demanded by something other than me. And so, however you say, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, some witness in that cloud was going, hey, you. And all I know is if that was 1200 BC and now we're 2025, hundreds of years later, we're keeping the fire. And that actually is a passion of mine.
So how long are you doing it again? It starts December 31st?
The year of the covenant. So it starts January 1st now.
Okay.
And we do it 48 hours at a time, but some people can't go 48. They say I can only do 24. And so we just kind of move the calendar around. And we put the fire out May 1st for years. And then, it started in 2017, but then the year of the covenant shooting, that happened on a Monday. And I would always, the last week of the month, I would reach out and start trying to book the following month. And on Monday, I was looking at lists of people who had kept the fire in March because it was in April, because this was the last week of March.
Yeah.
And then I started getting texts. Cindy Peak isn't answering her phone. She was sub-teaching today. Chris can't start praying. And I was like, and there was an active shooter and blah, blah, blah. And she was actually an old friend, and she was the substitute teacher who's one of the people killed that day. And so I went, what I don't need to be doing is asking people if they want to camp out by fire. And so since the Covenant shooting, the fire has ended April 1st. Okay. And instead of May 1st. But that is, I don't know, just a way of.
No, I mean, Al Andrews told me about it. It's just, you've been doing this for years and was telling me about it years ago. And I'm like, oh my God. And for one thing, just to go and be somewhere for 48 hours without, just eat and.
Yeah. So, but doing a podcast, we talk about things that are passionate to us. And it's like everything. I think because I love silence and I love being outside, I love grounding. I'm always like trying to find some way to go, hey, will you do me a favor and keep this fire going? And I know what I'm doing is I'm inviting them
to have a great experience.
To hear bird song and,
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I still want to do that. I don't know if you're covered for this year, but we need to do it. Like I need to do it. It's something, but that's the overall health thing. Can we talk about what is it called? Ceralex? Ceracet. Okay, because it's just family member dealing with stuff. Several family members actually dealing with things. Just I don't know what we're doing to our brains with this in this particular era, but it doesn't seem to be extremely healthy. And we were talking about hyperbaric chamber, which is amazing for the brain or whatever. And you have this company that you're super into, and I am so going to go and take my entire family. But I want you to talk about it.
Fantastic. Yes. I was introduced to brain mirroring back in 2009. I had a family member living with us, and she was really struggling, and her pendulum was swinging way wide. And anyway, I heard about this very different, non-invasive technology that you could sleep through. And I thought, let's try this. And I was such a fan. And I saw such a remarkable change in her, just a leveling of her processing, her ability to communicate, her ability to sleep. And I became interested. And so, and now I'm a big supporter of Sarah said. Yeah. So I do these therapies, and it's the, when you say something is so efficient financially and time-wise, does it mean the same thing to say I've never, like efficacy? Does that mean efficient? It sounds like
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 So the efficacy of Sarah said is unlike any therapy I've ever seen anywhere, ever.
Wow.
And so the financial investment, comparatively speaking, is minimal, and it's not zero, but it's and
Yeah, it's so cheap.
and one can know, within a 2-week period if this is going to help.
That's so it's so amazing. And as you're looking for things to like, I mean, a lot of time, my feeling about the medical industry, and it's not the people. I love my doctor, and I love a lot of doctors. I have great friends, and it's not the people, but our medical industry is so screwed up that anything that insurance pays for, I tend to not believe that it's going to work, and anything that is they don't cover, I'm a little bit interested in pursuing. And the things, and that has been kind of true. I don't think the medical industry would thrive if we were all healthy. They wouldn't want that. So when we're talking about grounding and diet and exercise and cold plunging, and like I told you, I'm an alcoholic, so I do everything to the wall. And so with that part of it, but things like this that can like reset and recenter. I mean, it's just, I can't believe that everyone, honestly, I can't believe everyone isn't doing it. Everyone, like, who couldn't use that in what we have going on in our society today? My boys are good, but when I think about having to grow up with all of that in your face, I'm like, I don't know what I would have done. Although we wouldn't have been allowed to have cell phones in my house. So who knows? We didn't have a TV growing up, by the way, ever. And so it kind of springboarded the other way for me. And I had TVs. There was a point we had TVs in every room at our other first house, or the house before this. We had just TVs everywhere hung because I was so like, I'm going to have TV, damn it, because I couldn't have it. And then the truth is we watch things at night, but there's never like a TV just going on all day, which I think that's really like in a hotel room. I don't really watch TV either until I'm about to go to bed, which I know is the worst time probably to do that. But the things that we do that are not healthy for our brains, we got to do something to counteract it. And all the social media and everything in our face, I'm just super into like you said, the lover of the quiet. Like I am not, that has not been my thing, but it's so amazing when you can just get quiet. Like meditation, which is a struggle for me, super important. And all the physical things, anything that's good for you is going to be a little bit painful. That's just how we've been created. So if I always tell kids when I'm talking to kids that are in need to be in recovery or that's, that have an addiction problem, the pain is coming. So we can either chase down the pain on our terms and attack it, or we can wait and let it attack us. And that is not good. It's not fun. So all these things, and I don't think there's any physical pain involved in Sarah said, but I do think being proactive on those kind of things is awesome. Is it nationwide or is it just something that's local?
Yes,
So you can.
No, it's like a lot of things coming up through a holistic world, it's franchise. It's franchises, and basically you walk into an office. Can I describe it? Because
Yeah, please.
It sounds. You make an appointment. You do a couple of different surveys to sort of talk about your experience, how you process. And then, but it's not talk therapy. I think that's just honestly for you to ask yourself questions so that you have an opportunity to observe yourself.
Does it get your brain in the mode to have this happen?
Yeah, or just awareness. Okay. And so, So what you do is you go into an office. One package is 5 different visits, and each visit looks the exact same. You go in and you have these proprietary sensors, 4 of them, 2 pairs, put at different locations on your head. And then you lean back, put a weighted blanket on, your eyes are closed, and you have earbuds in. And so the only input you have is what comes through the earbuds. And the tones that you hear are created by, those sensors are put in different locations on your head, and they read the energy, high to low frequency, left to right dominance. That energy is fed through probably a 2 million line algorithm, and it's turned into a tonal language. And then so you're basically listening to the energy output that your brain is doing.
So what you're listening to is not preset or programmed.
It's not
based
preset.
on your own brain. What is?
Yes. So it's what do you call that? Live, immediate. And so as your brain is listening to whatever those tones are, don, 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 that's what mine sounds like. Your brain, the only input it has is tones that it is creating. And it takes it about 90 seconds to realize this is me. And then it starts auto-correcting itself. Oh, my foot is on the brakes right there. My foot is on the gas right there. Because anytime a trauma or anything happens to us, the way our brains are wired, they don't say, oh, the trauma's over.
Mm-hmm.
It just has a response. And
PTSD that is bound to help with that.
Yeah. And so it's on the ready. It's always on the ready in case that thing happens again. But even if that thing never happens, that readiness position is fight or flight.
I mean, 5 years ago, I would have been like, well, that sounds like a 1970s movie with something. But I am 100% in. And that is, I've learned more than I want to, just based on necessity in life. But that is absolutely like for the minimal cost and the time that you're able to do it. I can't imagine that everyone wouldn't do that. Being healthy is it's an action, and what you said something about like when something is working, you kind of have to find a new version of that sometimes. I mean, I do think that we should always be searching for. It doesn't mean crazy, like trying every single thing that comes down the pipe, but like a new version of grounding or whatever it might be, like finding that new thing, because it is a journey, and it's the number one thing to me about things like that is discipline. Like if we don't have what motivation is not the same as discipline. Like I'm not motivated. There's certain things that my discipline is so good about that my brain will not argue with my body. My brain knows my body's going to be in there working out in the morning. It doesn't argue with it. But there's other things that my brain still wins the argument, tobacco or, you know what I mean? So some nicotine actually more so than, but the brain winning the argument. And I just think that's something that I think we're happier, healthier, more able to serve others, whatever, when we're always challenging the discipline or the lack of discipline we have. And so I find things like that, like a head start in getting to the things that we need to do. I think if we get our brains in order, we can read more and meditate more and all those things that your brain is still, turn the TV on.
Yeah. And everybody's wired differently. Like just then I can tell you're wired by, you use the word motivation, and somebody else might be, I feel like I'm motivated more by curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not, I don't know that I'm as disciplined a person. And so it's just hearing you process. I'm like, I relate to that. Yeah. Not so much that. Yeah. But everybody's so unique.
I was going to say, my truth is I'm trying to get rid of the motivation piece and find the curiosity. But the alpha whatever in me gets the curiosity and then latches onto it like a Doberman pinscher. You know what I mean? So I am curious to start with, but then I get the thing like, and everyone's got to know this today.
Yeah.
And that comes from my sweet Baptist mother. she's never met anyone she didn't share the gospel with, you know. And
You are reminding me so much just the world you came from. So for 17 years, I was married to Gary Chapman, and he grew up in a tiny town. His dad was an Assembly of God pastor. They have so many funny stories. And anyway, and I loved his family, and Gary is such a character.
he's a character.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so, but man, a lot of that early on wiring came just that crazy combination of church, all that, you know.
Oh, hell and heaven.
All of, yeah.
Everything based on, it's interesting because now hearing about your just kind of calm, I got a call from a record company. How did your parents react? They told me about my nephew's basketball game. That just wasn't, everything was on stun. I mean, the church, first of all, we didn't know anyone that didn't go to our church. Was that a cult? I don't know. I mean, you know, we didn't know anyone that didn't go to our church. We didn't associate with it. If you left our church, we didn't talk to you anymore. And if you came back, you were okay again. So that was everything was on stun and hellfire and brimstone. And literally the first memory I have as a child is being in the bathtub and my mom telling me, if you die tonight and you didn't accept Jesus in your heart, you're going to hell. And my first thought ever was like, that I can recall a memory is like, I can die tonight, you know? and from then till probably in my mid 30s when I got sober, from that point as a child, I was terrified of hell. It didn't keep me from any bad behavior. And right. You know, cocaine, all that, terrible guilt. I knew I was going to hell, but I was terrified of it the whole time. And I just am searching a little, and by the way, there's great parts in all of it. There's great people. My parents were awesome. They're great people. Yeah. But we do need to find others. So I really love hearing the calm story, the lack of hellfire and brimstone story, the Jesus, the grace that's there. And we don't always have to be escape. First of all, if eternal life is a gift, then why are we always trying to earn it so much? And if it truly is a gift, we can't earn it. So listen and let it be. But we fill our heads with information. It is from my childhood. We fill our heads with information and then we beat everyone over the head with it. And we have some clear lines in the sand. You don't sing, play, or listen to secular music, and you don't, you know, you don't watch television, whatever it might have been. And so my instincts. It's why the Enneagram doesn't work for me, because my instincts are one way and I've worked really hard to be another way. And so there's always a little battle going on between. So I love your upbringing and the calmness and the subtle decisions. I mean, it was our thing was mayhem with my little tiny career in our family. And it doesn't mean that my mom was just, you know, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? And I'm like, Mom, we haven't profited anything yet. We did one tour and we're in debt to a record company, $1 million. There's no profit here. Yeah. But everything was like, don't get the big head, don't, you know, it's just, I think maybe at least for me, I try to search out the things that maybe were missing in my spiritual life and my relationship with God and see them in people that I'm attracted. Al Andrews was the first guy that ever loved me for who I was. That sounds really strange, but he just was like, he liked me. Nothing to do with anything, but just, and he's like, yeah, what you do is hard. You say you're playing music, but it's not a game. It's hard. And at the same time, he did the same for my wife, who brightly wanted to kill me at the time. You know, there's just that peaceful existence. And so it's funny how close I am to him, because I'm chasing that thing. And then he, you know, I get out of ice plunge out here. So I'm good for him too. I got out of ice plunge.
You're kidding.
No.
What's your temperature?
Well, it was with ice, and I do it in the pool in the winter. So I think the day that we did it, it was like 50, 48, 50. So I'll do it. Yeah, that's good. Now I go in the ice when it's like 30 degrees, the water's break the ice, and it hurts. It's bad, but
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's good. It's so good though, by the way. I don't know if you do it at all.
on a trip one time with Vince when I was turning 50. We went to and we were like floating for 20 minutes in the cold, and it was unbelievable. And so that was the first experience I ever had, and it was prolonged. So it'd get hot and then go back in. And once you get through the initial, it actually is very calming.
Very calming.
And so now anytime I'm not very often in a place where they have an ice plunge, but I've thought about getting those attachments that you can put on your bathtub.
Yeah.
And in the
winter, it's cold showers too. If you,
yeah.
But
the water in the tap doesn't get as cold as that.
Water in the tap in the winter gets pretty cold. But I'll say, I'm sure you have a pool. If you just get in the pool in the winter, it's like crazy cold, but it's so good. It's like grounding on stun. But it's like this morning before you got here, I plunged and then I work out and then I sauna and then I go another time in the plunge. The second time, it's the drug addict thing. But you do feel a little bit like high,
That's good.
Physically. Yeah. Good natural stuff. Like, that. How is Vince? How's the Eagles life going?
He loves that music. I feel like the opportunity for him to play that music is from a work setting. Like he loves old country music, but it doesn't scratch all of his itches. Yeah. But those songs do. And he's loved having a job in service to those songs. He really misses touring.
On his own.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so I've loved this for him. I call it the velvet handcuffs, because he has given years of his life. And I think he's probably written over 100 songs just since COVID. He's recorded at least half of them. And so he does a lot in the studio because he just misses
being an artist.
Well, you know what? I'm just speaking for him. I can't say this, but truly he would probably say something different, but he just misses jamming. He misses just actively exploring music because he is a player.
Yeah, we got to write at your house a few times with Vince over the last few months with this new artist we have, and just that room with obviously the greatest guitar store ever, with like hundreds of amazing guitars, and I'm just like, is it cool? He's pick up anything you like, I'm trying to bang him. Yeah, he's such a sweetheart and totally like a gem in Nashville. So when I haven't seen the Eagles yet, I plan to get out and do his thing. But Brett, my brother, went and saw when they were here, and he said, and we're not as close to Vince as a lot of people, but we've just been around a lot of time around the same circles. And Brett said, I couldn't take my eyes off Vince. I'm just like, that's kind of like one of our guys in the Eagles. And he said the whole night I just watched Vince, and he just said it was fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a great side man. He's it's so weird. Like even just the way he plays rhythm, he's such a great rhythm player. And you guys are fantastic, but somebody can pull out a guitar and it's just like you feel the groove is totally dialed in. And anyway,
he's one of those patient musicians where he can play, he just wait.
He's not in a rush. He is not in a rush for anything.
And then he plays one note and it's like, oh, there it is. It's just, it's a rare gift to not have, and he can do all the things, but he can also not do any of the things. And I've never seen a guy be able to sit down with that much restraint and do something really simple, knowing how great he is and not have to show it all the time. It's pretty cool.
He's told the story a bunch that one of his first sessions he was ever on, he came and played the song, listened to the song, and then played once. And the producer, I don't even remember where it was or who the producer was, but then he said, hey, let's go through it one more time. This time play me half of what you know. And he was a kid, and he was like, oh, it's as important what you don't play. So
I'm trying to learn that. So tell me about this bicycle accident you had before we go.
In 22.
Yeah.
End of July in 22.
Yeah. It was serious, right? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a couple surgeries after that, and they said it'd be a 2-year recovery, and they weren't kidding. And so that was 2.5 years ago. And it's really been I've really felt myself in the last year.
Really? So it took that long. And is there anything permanent?
My balance is not quite as good, and my short-term memory, I have to write a lot down. And I'm going to tell you, my name memory used to be my superpower.
Oh.
No kidding. And it was just like, and now, it's not there. But
that's a good thing to have as an artist, that name memory superpower.
Oh my gosh. I had a note on my bunk in the last year, and it was from a guy, and he said, way back when, I met you in like 1983. And the next year I was coming with a bunch of friends, and I told them I had a conversation with her out by her bus, and they were like, yeah, right. And so this was decades early, 40 years ago. And he said, when we showed up the next year, you were playing a bigger place. We were parking in the parking lot. You had gone out to get something off the bus, and I shouted your name, and you turned around and you called my name back. And I mean, I'm talking freak. And he said, just wanted you to know I'm still coming to your shows. And I read that letter and bawled my eyes.
Because you don't think you can do that anymore?
I know I can't.
You can't.
And so, but all my friends say, hey, you're right on time. Like,
yeah,
we didn't have a wreck, and none of us could do that.
It was just a gift that you could do that before. Because, and sometimes I think when someone has just told me their name and there's 2 minutes have passed, I'm like, damn, I forgot that name. I got to get that name back. How did I do it? So maybe it's a lack of attention, living in the moment, not my strong suit, working on it all the time. But that's part of it. You are the kind of person who's in the moment enough. When someone says their name, you're hearing every syllable of that name before you're moving on to what am I going to say to this person. I'm 2 paragraphs ahead. We're, just gone. And so that's a terrible. So if I ever get in a bike accident and that happens to me, I'm actually going to celebrate a little bit. Hey, sorry, bike accident. I don't know your name. Just excuses.
Hey, you know what would be great if you ever, dang, now I can't remember the name of, what do you call comedy that happens at the moment?
Oh, improv?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and word. So that's a lasting thing. Word. I was an English major. I had a great vocabulary.
Yeah.
But Jenny Van Valkenburg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the oldest of our 5.
Her husband is my publisher.
Yes,
Josh.
Josh.
Starting like 2 weeks ago. He's the greatest.
You will love him. He's such a great guy.
I've known him for 20 years, and we actually, he's awesome.
But she said, she's been taking improv classes for the last year. And she said, I'm different in a conversation because of that.
Wow.
Because improv, you can't be setting up your comedy lines because they might take you a different direction. And you always have to forward the momentum. You can't be asking questions. You have to use your, anyway, I mean,
so
all
you can't
the games
manipulate the conversation to get to that joke 3 or 4 lines away. Well, that would be tough for me.
Yes. But she just said, oh my gosh, to be fully present. And she said, you have to be fully present, looking for the treasures in what they are immediately saying. Wow. And just present until they stop talking. And then you can't self-edit. You just have to like spring, and not everything's going to be funny, but something will be. I mean, it's changed her. It's changed the way she listens, and she's funny. I just saw her live the other night.
Oh, she's doing this on stage somewhere?
Yes. So now her class is like 17 people, and they're level 5. And at Third Coast, it goes all through level 6. But she was invited to be a part of a 8-man team called Short Ribs. And we just saw them at a little tiny theater called the Barbershop in East Nashville. And
that's awesome. I would be so scared I would suck at it.
I was like,
you know what I mean?
You know, that kind of like sweating.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of, I mean, I was such an empathetic listener. I felt like I had that kind of like fear-based body odor at the end. You know What's that?
We're just talking about that with somebody like, wow.
Because you're going like, so the host would say, everybody be behind the curtain. The host would say, give me 3 adjectives, give me whatever, give me a place. And we're shouting it out. And she takes all those, they come out, and the game, it's different games. We've just said what the setting is, what the, so she's putting our details into comic frameworks that they've done before, the games, but it's all new information for them. And so we know it's new information, and then they're having to get to the point till there's a big laugh and then the game ends. But
well, that gets your brain on. You know Ben Rector?
I don't know him personally.
So, but we did a thing at a house party thing with him, and he just said, give me a subject. And he says, sometimes this doesn't work, but anyway, everyone's shouting stuff out. And so I was sitting beside him. I just said, dogs on airplanes. And so he's like, oh, this. So he kind of milled it around in his head and kind of worked and wrote and sang a song about dogs on airplanes, like right there in the spot, like one time through. And it was fascinating, fabulous. And I'm like, well, I want to be able to do that. I think quickly, but in like sound bites. Just one quick one. I can't take the long journey. That would be good for me. That would be good for my brain.
Yeah.
Improv.
And it'd probably just be fun because you are funny and you're quick-witted.
It's too much. I have a question that I ask everyone before we leave, and 2-part question. And it's, what is the worst thing that's ever happened to you? And what is the best thing that came out of that?
Oh. I mean, I probably the worst physical thing that's ever happened to me was that bike ride.
Wow.
And oh gosh, so many hidden gifts in that. So the worst thing was the bike ride because my friend thought I was dead. And so she had to go through therapy after that. And so, but the best thing that came out of it was, I had a cyst lodged in my vocal cords. I didn't know it, but the trauma to my body caused a pre-existing cyst to grow at a hyper rate. And so for the last 10 years, I've had a hard time singing. I don't love it. And then my pitch was getting wonky, and I was like, fire yourself. And then I was doing a Zoom vocal lesson, and the teacher said, lean your head back. And I leaned my head back, and I said, I think I'm headed for sexual confusion because I'm growing an Adam's apple. And she said, you need to get that checked out. And I did, and they biopsied it, and it was called a thyroglossal cyst. And it was just a tract that didn't seal when I was in utero. And it slowly developed a cyst that was growing. There was nothing wrong with my vocal cords, but it was hindering my ability to sing. And had I not had that bike wreck, and it had gone into hypergrowth, it suddenly looked like a bulge in my throat. They said it was not a chicken egg, but quail egg, bigger.
And you might have never known it was there if it hadn't gone into
5-hour surgery. Wow. Bam. And they took it out. And it was, it just gave me back something that I loved.
It's crazy there. And it's a microcosm. There are blessings in the pain, always. And the bigger the pain, typically, if we're willing, there's a bigger blessing. There's a lot of things. That's wild. That's a good, feasible, like put your finger on it, physical. But I think that's a microcosm for a lot of things.
If you can say that in the worst pain, there's blessing.
Oh, they're absolutely blessing. My selfish, person in me would love to go back and give myself the blessings pre having the pain and not ever have the tragedy, the pain. But like so many blessings outside of missing my son. First of all, the surety of where he is. So good about, so sure. But the peace that I have that I never had, even before I had children, which is, as soon as you have kids, you're kind of sleep worried every night. But as a kid, just a scared kid, going to hell. We always talk a lot of talk about hell. Ooh, we talk about hell a lot. A lot of talk about hell and going to hell and who's going to hell and the Jewish neighbors, are they going to hell? And I'm like, I don't know, they act more like Christians than we do, Mom, and, kind of going just a lot of fear and terror in my life. And after this event, in no easy way, but just peace. I just don't care. Like there's a lot of things I just, I always hated to fly. And then I got sober. And of course, as an artist, even crappy when you have to fly all over the place, flew all over the world, hating to fly, got sober almost 20 years ago. And it got a lot better. You just have more peace and serenity. Since losing our son, I don't care if that plane just flips. I'm like, this is probably the best death you can think of. It's better than cancer, better than, that lack of fear, a little bit of tenacity, to have discipline. I don't think I was a very disciplined person before that, or I would work on it. I have much more discipline because I'm not afraid of pain. I experience pain every second of every day, and it's fine. And it makes me believe in the God that I always claim to believe in and what's coming. And I don't know if I didn't believe it before. I guess maybe I believed it, but I certainly didn't live like I believed it, didn't act on it. So the blessings that come from something that bad are huge. And it sucks. It's the worst thing ever. But we were talking about our friend John Huey earlier. I was telling my brother last night, I said, and I don't know why he came up, but I said, I love to go to John. And there's a couple other guys too. He's so sure. Oh, get out of here. Of course.
Just sure about everything, or sure?
Just sure about where our kids are. We're going to see them. Yeah. The dinner's going to be amazing. We're going to sit around this dinner and we're all going to, all of our dads, they'll be like, oh, we're all going to meet each other's kids. I can't wait to meet your kids. And it's like this vacation you're looking forward to. And I'm sure of it too, but I'm sure of it because he is. And people like that have helped me to get in there. Those blessings are just, I was terrified of every single thing that happened to me before this event in my life. And now I don't really feel like I'm afraid of anything. That's a huge blessing at the highest price, But there we have it.
Yeah. I don't know how we come to know, but we do. And at the risk of being that sometime in this last year, maybe it was in the fall, I was so unsettled by a lot of stuff and just one particular dynamic. And anyway, Vince said, do you want to talk about it? And I said, this is not going to help. Talking won't help. And I went outside and there was like a full moon. Vince went to sleep. And I was really battling my just faith. And I was like, are you really here? Because I got nothing. And as I'm sitting here, I was just standing there, like looking at the moon, zero energy coming from me. And I felt my hands kind of twitch, just kind of move a little bit. And I just let them. Whatever I felt, I guess I said, yes. And I just tried to stay completely uninvolved. And I felt my hands coming up and then like moving. And I stayed completely uninvolved. And I started to laugh. I said, are you dancing with me? I don't know what that was. All I know is I walked out, I was in tears and said, are you there? That was as big as the prayer went. And I brought nothing to the table. And I walked back in and fell asleep. And I felt at peace. And honestly, sometimes I feel like I know less now than I was sure of when I was younger.
Yes.
I know so much less now. And people go, oh, you've just been such a faithful example. And I go, me? Because my prayer is when I say it with words, just, God, don't let me go. Just hang on. Just don't let me go. You know? And that's it.
I think he likes our questions, but the ones directly to him, are you there? Like, really, really simple. It was this AA meeting in New York City one time. And this guy, you know, and they're crusty and there's, you know, it's super blatant to the point. And this guy was telling his story real quick. And he's like, yeah, I was raised an atheist. And so I'm at the end of my rope, the end of a million ended ropes that I'm at the bottom of the bottom. And I just didn't have anything at all left. And I just looked up at God and said the first prayer that I ever prayed in my life. And I just said, you win. And that was just, I thought, what a beautiful first prayer. You know, it's like, it wasn't, you know, it's like nothing that he learned in church taught him to say that prayer. It's just like, that's how he talked. And that's how it went. And I literally have had to say that and you know, the truth is when something big happens, like, you know, the fork in the road is pretty clear, at least for me, for being an addict. I always had an agreement that with God, if you take one of my children, I'm drinking again. That's like, I'm going to do your will here, but you take one of my kids and all bets are off and I'm going to take the other road. First of all, God doesn't make deals with us. And second of all, when it happened, I couldn't have been less likely to take that road. I was like, oh no, I felt the closeness. My father is gone and he was in heaven. And I was just like, I felt a closeness towards heaven and eternity and all of the dogmatic things that I learned, which may or may not be right. I just don't care. I don't care anymore about your dogma or my dogma. I'm willing to be wrong about all of that. And I always think to that with someone just arguing with me, which is fine. I'm like, I'm willing to be wrong about my dogma. Are you? Because I just want a relationship with the God I know is there and I can feel him. And it's the first time with this tragedy that I ever felt him really, because I had to. I'm stubborn. I needed to need him to breathe in order to need him. So there's the gift. And that are you there? I mean, I had that prayer a lot of nights, a lot of mornings, you know, the role, just feeling like you're in a plane crash every day. And we have some crazy signs and stories and cardinals. We both have them tattooed on us, Michelle and I. And it's like there's God shows up if you're paying attention. Not always the way we want him to, but it's been there's been a lot of lessons and a lot of blessings in the very worst things. I actually kind of feel like I started living at that moment in ways, which is crazy. Yeah. And like kind of got off the ladder and just started walking with bare feet in the field somewhere, you know. Yeah. Anyway.
It shows.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being a yes person. Just my friends that I know that you've been so good to over all these years. It's Al and just a lot of them. But thank you so much for being so awesome, being the yes person. And the world's a better place because you're a celebrity. So don't fight it. You hate compliments. I love that. But it's true. It's every now and then a guy gets it right. I mean, obviously he gets it right. Every now and then he gets it right with my approval, which is never.
Well, thanks for having me and talking.
Appreciate you coming. And thanks, Burton, for.
How often do you get to see him?
I see Burton a lot. We actually just went on vacation with Burton and another couple to the Keys for a few days.
You're kidding.
Yeah, Burton and Laura. And
oh my gosh.
I see him at least weekly. We hike some. Yeah. Nope. He's one of my favorite people in the world. And yeah, your family's pretty good. Top to bottom. He's a crazy man.
Yeah, he is.
Let's talk about him on this so he can't defend himself.
It's so crazy because now all my kids are starting to have kids, and it's like you can be so tight. I was tight with my siblings and their kids, but then when the next generation comes, it's just like
too many of them.
Of necessity, you have to focus on your kids. But I mean, I think about my larger family, say their names out loud all the time.
I mean, you would know this, but this funny. One of the reasons that Bert and I became friends is because we are both so hyper, like completely hyperactive, fast talkers, funny guys, whatever. And so when I guess I can just say, and we're both in recovery. And here's my analyzation of that. Everyone who's in addiction does the drug they need the very least. Like, I was a coke guy. That seems like a terrible drug. I should be taking
a sedative.
pot or Quaaludes or something, Valium. And then the lazy guy that can't get off the couch with an Xbox is smoking more pot. I'm like, you could probably use some coke. Addicts always use the drug they need the very least. So that's, yeah. Got to get a little addiction talk in before we leave.
Yeah,
but thank you so much. Thanks for being here. I love you. I love Vince. You guys, your whole family is great. And I'm just blessed to be in your stratosphere. Thank you.
Right back at you. I
Awesome.
feel the same way. And who knows what's going to happen with all of our conversation about Sarasate and Creative Vets. Have you written with those guys?
Who?
The Creative Vets.
Creative Vets, no.
No, okay. Richard Casper, anyway, he uses the arts to help empower wounded veterans to heal themselves.
Oh, wow. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all in. I'm definitely going to have
Yeah.
more discussion. And thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Good Grief, Good God Show. New episodes drop on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays, so be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment or review. We would love to hear from you. The Good Grief, Good God Show is brought to you in loving memory of Sage Warren.